everyone, it's Dustin with TechMD. Today we are going to be tearing down my own personal iPhone 11 Pro. Now, I've got to the point where I've already broke the back. I have not broke the front, but I do want to show you guys how to actually open up the device and replace the screen. We haven't received any, we've only received a couple calls on them, but the price is pretty expensive. I do find this video going to be useful in the future. Be aware that if you're using an Apple part, it will say that it's not an original Apple part without going to an Apple actual authorized service provider. They have to reprogram the screen, and Apple unfortunately has locked this third-party people out. You say, why don't we get Apple certified? Well, unfortunately, it's not really worth us getting Apple certified. We can't make enough money to do that. To be competitive, we have to keep Apple's prices, and especially companies like me that are mobile. There's just not enough margin for technicians to make that kind of money. So we are totally going to have to use aftermarket displays or aftermarket OLED or even Apple Original, but it's always going to pop up a message saying this is no longer Apple Original. Now, since we are taking off the screen and putting it back on the same phone, it's not going to actually have that, but if you had two iPhone 11 Pros and swapped the displays, you would experience this problem. I talk more about this in the interview that you might see on this channel already. We have a TV interview that I just went through for our local news channel, and we talk about right to repair. I don't know actually how much got on there.
Hey everyone, Nicole here with Cellbotics. We are all hands-on cell phone and computer repair training center. We have trained hundreds of students from across the country right here in our training center located in Greenville, South Carolina. Stop being afraid to do repairs, stop searching for things because a lot of things you don't even know what to search for, and don't practice on somebody else's device to grow your skill. Come on down and get training that'll give you the skill set to do the repairs and diagnostics to make the real money. Be sure to use code TechMD at checkout and you'll receive $50 off of your course. I look forward to seeing you in class.
Yeah, this is, like I said, my personal iPhone here, and we're gonna go ahead and turn it off and we're gonna open it up. You're going to need several tools. All these tools you can find in the link in the description of this video, okay? So this is a pentalobe screwdriver. I recommend the 2UUL pentalobe screwdriver. It's one of the best drivers out there, and it's long lasting. We're going to go ahead and crack this open. So don't put too much like power to turn, but put a lot of pressure towards the phone so that way you don't strip the screw. And then just slowly pull it out. Now, if it's not coming out, you can remagnetize it here. Really important, just nice and good circles here. Same thing, pressure. And sometimes you just have to pull it out. Okay, now we're gonna put the screws over here. On 1 and 2 is what I like to put them over here. And then we're going to warm it up. You can use a hair dryer, heat gun, hot plate, or hot pad. Now, what we're using today is the BEST or BST-928. It's one of my favorite. I like to use 120 degrees. It's absolutely, definitely one of my favorite devices to warm up the phone. You can also use a heat gun, and you can use some circles, just go around the phone carefully and slowly warm up the actual phone itself on high for about 30 seconds. The goal is to get it hot to the touch. You need a hair dryer. It's going to probably take 2 to 5 minutes to warm it up at a correct temperature. And then a hot plate. We don't use hot plate because it just takes a lot longer to warm up the actual hot plate, but they work just the same. So I'm going to leave this on for about a minute until it gets hot to the touch where I just can barely handle it. And then I'm going to use some heat resistant gloves. So now that we got it nice and warm here, I use the Iflex tool, but you can use the iseasmo tool. So what we're going to do here is just slowly slice the adhesive here all around. Same with here. And just to let you know, if you're doing this and you're under a 1-year warranty, you void your warranty. So slice all the way up the phone and then up here as well. If you turn on the phone, that's okay. You just turn it back off. Now that we got most of the display sliced, we're going to do it again. Don't go in very deep. Right here as well. And if your screen's breaking off or pieces are breaking off because your phone's broken, that's okay. I'm just twisting. And it's going to slowly come up. So I like to pull this way a little bit to help the display come out. I'm going to have our first look into the iPhone 11 Pro. Be really careful when opening up your display if you're replacing your battery today. Wow, it looks a lot different than some of the other versions. So it's not too hot to hold anymore, so I can take off my gloves. Now it looks like we got some tri-wings here, and I'm looking for the battery connection, and I'm assuming it's right here. So we're gonna go ahead and aim for this first. Now every screw has to be back in its place, so if we're going to work with this mat, I'm going to move this mat over for this particular reason, because I don't want to get any screw messed up. So I'm going to rotate the phone at normally it would have it the other direction, but since we're doing this for good camera views, we want to have these screws in the opposite direction. Actually, let's do it here. But I like to visually space them, so that way I know exactly what screw goes in what hole. You could damage the motherboard if you don't do that. Then I put the plate right over it. Okay, so it does look like the battery connector is right here. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect that. Usually I'd recommend using a plastic tool, but we're using tweezers here to get a good view. Okay, so now the power is disconnected. Okay, actually, we'll keep it at this angle. I want to change the angle because it's just in my nature to get the best angle for what I'm doing here. Go ahead, and this is the 2UUL screwdriver. This is the tri-point 0.6 or 000. I do believe. The Y000, that's what it's called. But this is the one that you can purchase off that link in the description. This is one of the best drivers out there that I've experienced. Been using it for over a year now. Put that plate right there. Wow, look at all those cables. My goodness. So we're going to disconnect one cable at a time. Carefully. And the display is ready to be moved off. Now, you would have this half if you're replacing the display. So what we're going to do is you have to transfer this cable off this display onto the new one. So we're going to pretend that we're doing that here in a minute. Look at this screw right here. Can you see that one?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to remove that. Super tiny. Now, in the past, we pop this up, but it's usually glued down, and this is still glued all down. So what we're going to do is warm this up on the hot plate here and give it for about 30 seconds. But while it's warming up, you can actually remove it right off the screen. It makes life much easier. Okay, so now that I've fixed my tweezers, so while the display is still warm here, you're going to carefully remove this piece and lift it up here. And I like to do this while the display's on it. If this is damaged, you're going to lose Face ID. Pull that out, and then remove the microphone off the side here. Yes, it's hot while you're doing this. Just have to get over it. But it makes life super easy doing that. You don't need to remove anything else. Now what we're going to do with this display is you're going to mail it in. You're going to get money back for this display. This thing is worth quite a bit of money, even if it is in fully broken state. So please look into that website in the link in the description where you can actually mail back your LCDs. It's pretty cool stuff. In the future, we're going to have a guy who will be able to refurbish all this. And if you have broken just the glass, feel free to contact us and I might be able to send you where you can get this glass actually fixed for a much cheaper rate than paying full price for a display. If you're ready to replace the display, great. So what we're going to do here is set this aside and go ahead and get our brand new display. So we're going to pretend this is our new display here. And we're going to go ahead and start putting our cables back on. Ready? So sometimes tweezers better so it's not in your guys' face here. I usually use my fingers like I'm doing right now. And just push it all back in where it belongs. Move this over the top of that. And then we are going to get our screws and screw down every one single of these screws. There you go. And then the next process would be to clip this all back in, but we're not going to do that quite yet. I'm going to show you how to remove this battery, which is typically very tricky. What I like to do is warm it up. These pull tabs love to fail on me, but if we can get the first pull tab to work on you, great. But if you do warm it up, the pull tabs just stop functioning. So just a heads up. We're going to pull on this little open hole here, and this is going to actually pull the tab out. Very careful not to puncture your battery here. So yeah, if you're looking at this a couple years later, even a year later, and you're like, my phone is crashing or it's getting really slow, I need a battery replacement, we're going to have these batteries available. Just remember, it's going to tell you a message saying it's not original. But what I like to do is twist the tweezers, trying to get a better grip, and then slowly go back and forth. Putting some pressure down. just twisting the tweezers here, trying to get the rest out of there. There we go. Looks like, unless we tore some. Looks like we got a few pieces left. Just nice and slow. Wow, that one's really long. Okay, that was definitely out. And out would mean that the battery should come up like that. Yes. That's good. So now you got several more pull tabs, but you'd have to remove all this to get to these pull tabs. And I find that like pointless. Now that we have a pulling point, obviously you don't want to bend the battery whatsoever, but the trick is
ASAP created a solution to maximize the total amount of power that can be safely generated without using fossil fuels. This is enough energy to power solder equipment, laser machines, AC and ventilation systems, and any heating element for all sorts of repairs you might encounter. Building mobile solutions that cut your expenses. Whether you have 1 store or 20 stores, maintain the territory, all while cutting overhead rent. Do away with your added expenses, cut costs, and order your custom van now.
Is to go and put this on the hot plate here for a few minutes and then slowly work your battery up like this. So we're gonna leave it on here for about a minute and warm the back up. Now, if you ever want to replace the glass, I do have several places that can replace the back glass that you can mail in your foam and get it really cheap. You can also buy the whole entire housing and swap all the components out. That's a nightmare. You can find a local repair shop that can just do the back for you, and you can use a laser machine to cut that off. But for now, the best option, for the cheapest option, is to mail it into a professional. Anything else is just going to be too much trouble to do this at home, to be honest. Apple has made this very difficult. You can't just, take the glass off. It's not that easy, unfortunately. If you don't have Apple Care, that's really the current solution. There might be some newer tools coming out in the future that might change all this. So if that happens, I'm very excited. So now that we're getting the battery a little bit warm, we're waiting for it to become a little hot to touch, but we can see how much wiggle room we have. But remember, I don't want to put any creases in the battery. Now, if you're replacing the battery, right, then you don't really care too much because we're replacing it. So I've just seen how much give it has for me right now, but right now it doesn't have enough. All right, so we get a little bit more warmer. The battery feels a lot more warm, not super hot. And we're trying to get it to come loose a little bit. I'm gonna need my gloves because it's getting too hot. Okay, so that is interesting. I just learned this is similar to, I can't remember which iPhone has this, but there's another iPhone that has a second connection, and this iPhone has a second connection. So heads up. I was totally doing this under live wire. You want to definitely disconnect this first before proceeding any further. Looks like we need to remove this screw as well. Jeez. Do you have to remove that fourth one over there? Yep, we do. Oh, where'd that screw go to? So we want to disconnect the battery here as well. This battery is totally reusable from what I just did here. Not a problem. And it didn't get damaged whatsoever. It is a unique design though, isn't it? Now I really need to find that other screw. We're missing a screw. It moved somewhere. Oh, I put it over here, didn't I? That's why. So this is how you remove the battery here. And then you would want to put your new battery. And I would recommend replacing it with some more battery tape. Hopefully it comes with some by then. Or if it doesn't, then you can use a different kind of glue, which I like T7000 because it gives it a good bond and it's nice and strong, and it's just my favorite glue. So just a refresher here, before removing this battery, you want to disconnect here and disconnect here, okay? Before removing that battery, it's super critical. Now we're going to replace our battery. We're not going to do a charge port or anything like that. This would be a lot more complicated to replace the charge port. You're going to have to remove multiple screws and whatnot, so we're not going to do that today. Front camera is not replaceable without losing Face ID, so just be aware of that. And then, of course, if you ever need to replace the triple camera, it's going to be right under here. We're not going to experience any of that. We're just showing the two most common repairs today. So ideally that you would want to use new battery glue, but I don't have any of that. So we're going to grab the connector here and connect that in. And the reason why we're doing that is to make sure that we get a good connection and it's proper. I really, thinking about it now, even if it is connected down here, there's no way to short out the board because it's not connected up here. So I think it was fine that I didn't disconnect it, but you still need to disconnect it either way before proceeding to remove the battery. Always recommended. Now, if you did have to use T7000 glue instead of tape, then just hold it down for about a minute. If you didn't and just tape, all you have to do is stick it down and you're good to go. I want to make sure the battery doesn't have to move anywhere, so I'm going to plug this in real quick and make sure it fits in the right spot. Okay, it did. So I'm just going to disconnect real quick. Now the battery's typically the last thing we want to connect, and this phone definitely promotes that, which is great. If you're worried about the glue or the water seal, you can always scrape off this old glue and put on a new sticker or T7000 around there. I am not going to worry about that this phone. I do not want a gluey mess inside this phone. You got to be really careful and line the glue up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and reconnect the cable display here. If you guys are curious, this is my first time ever opening this phone up. Never have done that before. I gotta carefully plug this cable in. We're gonna go ahead and just reconnect that. And you have to move the cable around sometimes to actually feel. So you don't want to press too hard, but you want to make sure that you're moving the display up and down so the cable can line up. I'm still not getting a good clip here. And I feel like it's just slightly like twisted like this. So what we're going to do here is just move the display around a little bit and play with it until, oh, there we go. See, you gotta be careful not to break these pins on the board. So I'm just moving around and adjusting the cable a little bit so we can get a good click. There we go. Nice and good click, guys. Okay, so now we're gonna get the plate on and we're gonna bring this back. And as I remember, we had it upside down like this. So this was the bottom left screw over here for this. So the alignment's already misaligned, so let's loosen these screws up a little bit. I have not seen this with an Apple device, and I'm just fixing the alignment so it's perfectly over that hole, so make sure that you do that, or your screws are not going to get in. Now we can tighten them. I feel like everything's going to stay straight now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and, well, if we flip this around here, this screw goes here, this screw goes here, and we're going to reverse them. There we go. So now, because we have it upside down still, and we're doing this for the camera guy, so we don't have to change angles here. Pick up our screw and put it in the right hole. These screws tend to be all different sizes, so you got to be really careful. Not every single one of them are different, but you just don't want to put them in the wrong hole. Just going to slightly tighten it, not all the way yet. So I want to check alignment. Grabbing my screw on the finger here. Now we can tighten it. Looking right now. Okay, and then last but not least, battery connector. Okay, and at this point you could turn it on and test it if you want. Make sure the display works before sealing it up. Since I already know the display works because this is original display, and it was working before I was done doing this, I already know it works, so I don't need to test it. Unless, of course, I broke it pulling it off, that would be very bad. So, you want to make sure that Face ID is still pushed up all the way up there and didn't fall out at all. I like to clip in from the top up here first. Looks like that clip is bent a little bit, so just moving it back down. There we go. So you get a nice clean seal. I'm putting pressure right here. I'm going to clip down right here and down right there. And then I just kind of slowly move my fingers upwards as I get a clip all the way down. Now, if it fights you too much, then either your clips are bent or you left a screw in there and you press down and it'll crack the OLED. We're going to go ahead and turn it on, and we're going to put these really long screws in here. So this is interesting. It's not turning on, and it might need what I call a jump. So a jump is where you plug in an Apple cable to it, and it kicks it on. That's usually on the older phones, but this might happen on this new one. I'm holding it for a long time. I'm getting no power. So we're going to go ahead and get an Apple cord real quick. All right, let's make sure this thing works here. There it is. So why does that happen? I don't know. Have I seen this happen a lot of times on older phones? Yep. And I've seen it a few times on newer ones. Something to do with the battery drain or disconnection. Maybe it's a safety thing that they're doing. Who knows? It's kind of annoying though. So we're going to get these two pentalobe screws. See, I'm pressing down here and pressing up here. Just putting pressure between the screen and the back. Push in and then screw slowly in there. You don't want to strip those screws, but you also want to get it all the way in there. And this is it. So we're gonna make sure Face ID works. So I'm gonna put my password in real quick. And Face ID unlocked, fully functioning. All right, guys, I just tore down my brand new iPhone 11 Pro. Call me crazy. I already broke this sucker. Good thing I have Apple Care. You can, like I said, if you don't have Apple Care or any kind of insurance, you can get, you can send this into a professional who can actually laser the back glass off. Okay? I really appreciate you guys watching the videos, and please, it really helps if you like in the description there. Just click the little like button. And then in the description, I meant to say, click on that End Your Gadgets link down below so you can buy Apple original parts from us. Or you can, when they become available, aftermarket parts as well. So if you do see aftermarket LCD, just think iPhone 11 quality for the Pro. And if you see aftermarket OLED, just think doesn't have Apple glass, so it's not as strong. I always recommend getting Apple original if you can afford it, but you can certainly get the cheaper stuff and save some money. Okay, guys? Well, anyways, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And more detailed videos coming up soon. Thanks.